Coty is a very old brand, as it was founded in 1904. One of its first perfumes was Emeraude, meaning emerald in French. This perfume may not be known too much today, but it used to be quite a luxurious product when it first came out in 1921. Usually I only have perfume samples, but this time I have the full bottle of Emeraude. The interesting thing about Emeraude is that it has evolved quite a lot over the years. When it first came out, it was released in Paris as one of the first Oriental perfumes released to the Western world. One of the other first Oriental perfumes was Shalimar, which I did talk about in another video. And a lot of people seem to think that Shalimar was a product of Emeraude, since Emeraude did come out first by a few years. And legend has it that Shalimar Guerlain, who produced Shalimar, was inspired to produce it after his wife wore Emeraude. Of course, we don't really know what really happened, but there does seem to be a connection between these two perfumes. The interesting thing is that Shalimar still remains a very luxurious perfume today, while Emeraude, on the other hand, has somehow been reduced to the cheap perfume category. I got this particular bottle off of Amazon for $14 or $15, so definitely not luxury style perfume, at least in terms of price, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the perfume itself is bad. On the contrary, Emeraude still has some of its more luxurious notes that it was famous for when it first was released in Paris. The thing about Emeraude, which I did not know until recently, is that since it was, of course, a product of the 20s and remained popular throughout the 30s, 40s, and 50s, even today to some people, is that it was marketed towards certain groups of people, particularly people with darker hair, which I think is a strange way to advertise a perfume, but I guess in the 20s and 30s, marketing richer and more exotic perfumes towards darker haired people was more common, while lighter haired people would usually be marketed lighter and more floral perfumes. As for the smell of Emeraude, you most likely have smelled it before. You may not realize it, but it was especially popular several decades ago. This bottle is actually a clone. It's not eau de toilette or a parfum. It just says clone spray. So clone is generally weaker than eau de toilette and eau de parfum. Although I would say this still lasts quite a while, it's still a relatively strong perfume, just not overwhelming. It won't drown everyone in the room if you decide to wear this. So easy to put on with the little spray nozzle. The top notes are all citrus, lemon, orange, and bergamot, and a lot of perfumes say, oh, it's all citrus on the top, and you don't really smell the citrus. This perfume, you can actually smell the citrus right away, and quite strongly. I would say it's mostly lemon. It smells like lemon meringue pie, all lemon. But beneath the lemon, immediately you can get some of the middle notes, which are ylang ylang, Brazilian rosewood, rose and jasmine, and I think the rosewood is pretty prominent. The floral notes are not prominent much at all, I would say, but directly beneath the lemon there's immediately some more musky, woodsy scents. Pine is an interesting scent that I detect, even though pine is not on the list of notes that are supposed to be in this perfume, so it could just be my imagination. but I would say that there is kind of a pine, like pine needles, the scent of those in here. The base notes are vanilla, amber, sandalwood, and patchouli, and there's also a popanax involved. I would say I do see a similarity between Shalimar and Emeraude. Particularly, there's a type of resinous, almost smoky smell. I would not say that Emeraude is smoky in the sense that Shalimar is, but there is that resinous scent in there. Probably, I imagine, from the opopanax, but it is an amber scent, so I imagine that the smell of amber is also coming through. But it does kind of have a refreshing, it's not too musky, it's not too heavy, it's not sweet, it's kind of nature forward. It has these mainly woodsy notes along with the citrus notes. Those are the two main groups that you get from this perfume. There's also, now there is quite a competition over this perfume. Some people really dislike this perfume, and I think that's because there is a hint in the background which is reminiscent of maybe mothballs, which is understandable. There's definitely a slight similarity to something that would kill insects in this perfume, but if you put that aside, there are definitely some nice refreshing notes of citrus and the richer notes of the wood. Overall, this is an interesting perfume. I wouldn't necessarily say it's one of my favorites, but it's a refreshing perfume. It's good to put on maybe after a shower if you want something to freshen up. One thing for sure is that Emeraude is nowhere near as luxurious as it once was and as it was once marketed, because, as I said, Emeraude means emerald in French, and François Coty, who designed this perfume, wanted to create a perfume inspired off of the exotic emeralds of Afghanistan and India, and also connected to those lavish gemstones where the sense of spices and citrus and woodiness and stuff like that. And I can imagine when this was released in the 20s in Paris that this would be quite an exotic perfume for the Parisians of the time. And they did quite like it. This was a huge success at the time. But it seems that people have moved away from this sort of scent and towards very different scents. This is definitely a classic kind of a deeper scent, a very natural, musky, yet refreshing scent that you don't often smell this sort of thing these days, but people still wear it. Not often, but it is still out there. Another interesting thing is the bottle. This is a pretty plain bottle. This seems to be the standard. You can see. It has a plastic cap, which I dislike personally. It's pretty plain, kind of a beige color. Now the bottle's glass. I'm glad that it's not another piece of plastic. It has some charm, at least. And it has a nice little metallic edge here, and a nice kind of shoulder here. But the classic perfume bottles for Emeraude were much more lavish. They had more character. I think this is still an old-fashioned bottle, but it is very simplistic compared to the more vintage bottle designs, which I think also kind of takes away and shrouds the bygone luxury that this perfume used to be. Now it's kind of off the shelf. Not hard to find, but not very popular. Also, the color of the liquid has changed. This, you can see, it's a light green. Emerald, is not this color. Originally, this was released as a much darker, richer type of green, a true emerald green. This is more grassy green, or like a plant. And that also kind of takes away, I think, from the previous lavish nature of this perfume. Because the darker green is richer, it has a more impactful appearance than a light green perfume. It's still a nice color, but it definitely isn't as striking as a dark, kind of foresty emerald green, especially in one of those ornate bottles. And as the light kind of filters through all the lines and creases of such a bottle through some dark liquid, I could imagine that it would look a lot like an emerald in that bottle. Yeah, this bottle has, in contrast, lost its charm, but it is affordable. Like I said, I only got it for $14 or $15, and you get quite a lot, 2.5 ounces. So it's not that bad if you want to get a lot of perfume that is a good perfume at a low price. But I can't imagine that this perfume isn't for everyone. It's certainly a very unique perfume. It is quite different from the other perfumes that I've kind of gone through already, mainly because I think the citrus notes are so strong in comparison to the base notes. Because you have those base notes which are very prominent, but that's constantly being pulled on by the citrus notes. That kind of balances it out and makes it an interesting scent. And it changes the longer you wear it. As you wear it, it becomes quite powdery, which you wouldn't expect when you first put it on, but after about an hour, you definitely get some very light powdery notes, which I like. I like powdery perfumes. It's a very fresh, refreshing, clean scent. But at the same time, the musky notes don't disappear. They stay there. Of course, the base notes stay there for a long time. The perfume itself isn't extremely long-lasting, maybe around 4 hours, and which is alright. Like I said, this is a clone. I'm not really sure how long the actual parfum will last. It could last 8 hours, I don't know. But this clone, which has a smaller percentage of perfume in it compared to the other forms, I would say lasts 4 hours. By hour 4, it's pretty hard to detect. I think you'd have to be right up on your skin to really smell it anymore. Even if you spray it all over you, it'll still kind of disappear by that point. Of course, you can reapply it, but if you're just talking one application, probably about 4 hours, then that's it. The sillage of the perfume is also not very prominent. I would say even if you douse yourself, the sillage would only be prominent for a little while, I think, maybe 40 minutes to an hour, or even less. But by that point, I would say it becomes more of an intimate scent. It doesn't, explore the air around you, just kind of stays on you pretty closely. So, not exactly a perfume that you can show off. People would have to be standing pretty close to you to really enjoy this perfume. But other than that, I personally like this perfume. I don't think there's anything grotesquely wrong with it. And like I said, if you want a nice, affordable perfume, this would definitely do it. Especially if you like citrus and musky notes, kind of an oriental scent. And overall, I think it's a good perfume. So, if you enjoyed the video, there's a like button below. Subscribe. That's all.